Welcome to Cutting Edge Web Content Development, the podcast where we delve into the world of CMS systems and their crucial role in website and web content development. In each episode, we'll explore the reasons why founders, CEOs, CTOs, and CMOs of web content development companies need CMS systems to thrive in the digital landscape. Get ready to uncover the secrets behind successful website management, content creation, and seamless user experiences. Here's your host, Jonathan Ames.
Welcome to Cutting Edge Web Content Development, a podcast by ButterCMS. Here we share insights on the intersection of content and web development, how you can align these two often competing forces to improve the efficiency and business results of your website. Joining us on this episode is Daniel Tannenbaum, Head of SEO at Dan Digital, to talk about expecting the unexpected in SEO. Welcome to the show, Daniel.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you for having me. Very excited. Thanks very much.
I'm very interested in this idea of expect the unexpected, because usually people don't like the unexpected, especially with SEO. They want to expect great results always and such. So I'm interested in that. But first, just tell the audience a little bit about your background, because you really have an interesting, funny background. Just like most SEOs, you don't come from an SEO career. You actually kind of moved into SEO from another career. So tell us a little bit about that.
That's right. I fell into SEO, which I think a lot of people kind of do. They often fall into digital marketing. I don't think people are necessarily leaving school or saying in kindergarten, no, I want to be an SEO specialist, man. But I'm hoping maybe one day it will be. But yes, I was traditionally kind of going down the finance route. I lived in a very kind of middle class and suburb where you kind of going into dentistry or law or kind of accountancy and finance just seemed to be the right spot. I was always doing internships from 18, 19, 20, 21, all through kind of even high school and college in kind of investment banking, hedge funds, private wealth. I often had no idea what I was doing. And some of those placements last 3 months. So I didn't even know how I kind of hung out that long. But you say intelligent things every now and again and you nod during presentations and you can kind of hold your own. But I was just going down that finance route. And it was in kind of my second year of college. My dad, there was this startup working next door him, and they were offering kind of loans, finance, and they were just growing and growing and growing. And before I know it, my dad was sitting in the middle of their offices because they were just taking up so much space. I applied for a kind of a summer internship and just kind of fell in love with digital marketing there and then. It helped that they had good budgets, and I was just kind of seeing all these people around me, and some of them were kind of ex-Facebook, Google, PayPal, and like, well, these are smart people. They didn't have to go into banking, or go into finance or something. Here they are working in tech companies, and then I just wanted to learn everything about it. I was having a lot of fun with kind of blogs and my own sites, and learning how to optimize them and reading out of books. And there were no real kind of jobs available in 2010 in kind of digital marketing or agencies. You just didn't know about it, and working for a startup seemed like a very high risk proposition. But it took a long time actually to get a job. But I went to work for a startup. They said you can just look after our SEO, our PPC, our affiliates, and I was there for 3 years and loved it. And I felt by the end I'd like to give freelancing a shot. I've already kind of got people on LinkedIn asking. I've helped some family, friends. I've got a taste for this, so I'll see where it goes. And lo and behold, that was just the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. So you worked in finance before. What were some of the things that were unexpected that you saw in SEO that might tie into this strategy here?
Well, I think, working in finance, especially kind of corporate finance, is very hierarchical. You kind of start as an analyst and you're expected to just kind of sit there all day. And I hated the idea of being told to kind of sit and work till midnight and 1 a.m. and then being in on weekends. For me, it just seemed crazy. But, you do have to listen to your superiors. And something quite interesting about SEO is that it's obviously a level playing field. It doesn't matter who you are, how big you are, where you are, you can rank top of for any word, which I really like. Especially as a young, ambitious person at the time. Interestingly, I always found that if you knew a lot about SEO, you sometimes became the most interesting person in the room. Not only does that help my desperate, need for appreciation and ego, but it's really cool. You sit with some of these very high-end people, big shots in retail, property, finance, whatever it is, and then here you are sitting there in a t-shirt and they're just hanging on your every word. Because ultimately, if you can get it right, you can change their business really, in the space of a few weeks, and it's insanely cost effective. It can cost you a few $100 or $1,000 to be able to expand your business, 10, 20 fold. So I like that kind of, for a young person, to get you kind of in front of interesting people to kind of give you a head start. SEO seemed to provide this.
Let's go into some of the strategies here that you've used. You've obviously helped, hundreds, perhaps thousands of pages rank on the top in Google. What are some of the key strategies that you found useful in doing that? Obviously, those change over time, but what's worked?
Yeah, so Google has, a number of techniques. I think, there's something like 200 official techniques. You kind of use that kind of, manipulate the search rankings. So very simply, my view is always to kind of be as clean as possible. And I know that sounds obvious, but it's actually in the SEO world, a lot of it is just kind of massive manipulation. You're nodding along. It's how you kind of try add tricks to kind of manipulate Google, whether it's, hacking other sites or using link farms or trying to use your content in some kind of obscure way so that you trick Google into thinking that you're more authoritative. Why that works is because you can get results very fast, but it can backfire. In fact, some industries such as casinos across the world are based on those kind of black hat, kind of obscure techniques. But I've always gone with this approach: keep it light, keep it simple, keep it as clean as possible. And whilst it might be a bit slower, you then get very, very stable results. So this means you start always with, what are the keywords you want to rank for? What is it that you actually want to come up on Google searches and for people to click on you with? So we make a nice list, tend to go with kind of 30, 50. This becomes our kind of benchmark. Can we kind of rank for these? We'll keep checking our reporting tools every day, every week until they start to rank. You then place these keywords, all over your site so that they're kind of in very natural looking places. Maybe you've got some specific landing pages, maybe it's through specific kind of blog posts. And then you just start to kind of build authority. You have some really nice content. You're answering key questions. There's nice use of images, nice use of internal links, nice use of videos, nice use of kind of reviews. You've got very kind of clear signals like having an address, an about us page, a contact us page, terms and conditions. Then you ultimately look at trying to get kind of PR and trying to kind of get traffic to the site. Now, if you can get mentioned in kind of local press or regional press or national press, and there's a physical link back to your website, Google starts to think, okay, they're being mentioned. They clearly have good content. They're clearly authoritative. And then you just go up. So, month one might be start by just adding lots of good content. And then from there, you just continue to add good content and just try to get mentions on as many sites as possible. And if you're in the finance niche, those are the kind of sites we want to be on. If you're in the health niche, those are the kinds of sites and so forth. And that's just kind of how you scale up depending on budget. It's just more content, more technical work and more links really.
Now you talk about producing content there. A lot of companies, have a content calendar or a schedule, and they're like, all right, every week or every month or so often, I'm going to produce a piece of content, and hopefully you're going to produce it on a good keyword that, brings in traffic. Is there a limit to how much content you can produce? Is there like a diminishing returns where you can produce too much content or it's not as effective? Or is it simply the more good content you can create, the better it's going to affect you in terms of search rankings?
It's a great question because, often Google have put out this slogan that content is king. So naturally the light bulb is that, we should just go and produce as much as humanly possible. But this isn't necessarily the right thing to do. I think quality over quality probably is better. I think you do need a regular flow of content to show that you're relevant. I think for a site that's dormant and hasn't been updated in 3 months, 6 months, or 2 or 3 years, Google starts to think, well, they're just dead. They're not being active enough. And ultimately, because the ranking, there's always someone coming up underneath you. They're probably producing more content. So in some respects, you need to sustain it. The danger with putting out too much is that Google is not going to index a website that has tens of thousands of pages. There's so much out there on the internet. They have to kind of decipher what's important and what's not. So you have to kind of assume that maybe they only index 50% or 80% of your site. So what you can do is go to old pieces and refresh them. Or what you can do is just try to find a nice balance where only the most important stuff is there. So my view is, if you've got a website, adding, 3 blog posts a week is pretty good. Maybe 1 a day as well if you're quite a big company. I think if you have services and landing pages that you want to create, you don't need to go overboard. I think 1 landing page can rank for dozens and dozens of keywords. You don't have to create 10 pages just for 1 keyword. That's a bit overkill. So I think over time, it's more about quality than quantity.
Excellent. So quality, how can your average layman who maybe isn't an SEO expert understand how to produce and what is quality content as they're looking to create it?
I think in terms of quality content, you're looking at just answering key questions and giving the information to someone. I know that sounds very obvious, but a lot of people just go to Google to answer, questions, why do I have this rash? Or I've just eaten something, what's going to happen to me kind of thing, or, what is this disease? I'm asking for a friend kind of thing. But you just want answers, and you just want to kind of explain that very clearly, ideally, in my opinion, above that fold, what is the question? And the answer is this, and you kind of need to back that up. So having a photo of yourself and the name is just now like, you just got to have it. I think putting kind of your diplomas and kind of what your credentials, your academic credentials are is very, very key. I used to run a site that's in the kind of medical field, and I kind of realized that I could basically write anything and get it to the top of Google. I even played a prank that, sometimes you get fruit which is a bit fizzy. So if people typed in what happens if you eat fizzy pineapple, I wrote this whole thing about, get your will ready, call your wife and kids, say goodbye to them because it's over for your pal. And lo and behold, I ranked for position one for about a year. So, I think now Google's getting a bit smarter. They want to see like a doctor's name and they want to see some credentials. So in terms of quality content, answer the question. Now that's the kind of a question, but if it's a service you're offering, I think what they want to know is, where can I get it? How much is it? How fast is it? Kind of thing. So if you're offering you serve pizza in your local area, it shouldn't just be like, this is who we are. This is what we're about. This is the history of pizza and whatever. It should just be, here's the prices. Here are the ingredients. Here's where you buy it. Go. You kind of just need to get to the point. Forget all this waffle about just panning it out. Just get to the point, make it clear, because ultimately I think a very, very big ranking signal is just user experience. Do people actually engage with it? Do they stay on it? Do they actually take a minute to read it? That actually gives you more weighting than if people just came and left straight away. So, relevancy, get to the point, forget the waffle, just go straight.
Yeah. So maybe journalistic style where you kind of put the most important information at the top and then kind of go down afterwards with the less important. So people could right away kind of get the answer.
Absolutely. Short paragraphs, 2-3 lines, very easy, accessible. News sites have kind of realized there is a way they're very well optimized for Google. They often have small paragraphs. They have links to other articles. It's done on purpose. You'll now notice it when you read something, but yeah, very much bullet points to the point.
Yeah. Excellent. All right. Well, there's been a lot of talk about AI and kind of how it can affect SEO. What are some strategies that you might use to plug AI into your SEO process to get better rankings?
Well, yes, AI is a game changer. In the last kind of 2 years, it has just exploded. And I think Google are making these, new algorithm updates because they're just trying to deal with this massive, massive influx of content and pages to index. You've probably got to imagine that in the last kind of 2 years, they've probably had 50 or 100 times more to kind of index than they probably had in the previous 2 years. So the obvious one is content. You can just generate content so fast and then automate it onto websites. And my view is that I think Google are closing in on this. They are honing in on it because they just don't want every website to look the same. They want to see people that put in time and effort. And I think we've done some experiments. We were just very curious. We just kind of wanted to see. And we created some websites using AI and, we were able to do them in about 3 hours, fill up a website, in about 3 hours. And then it actually would start ranking in about a week, probably because there's just so much content and so much for them to look at. You start to rank and we were quite surprised how fast we were actually ranking. Usually we'd say give us like 3-6 months to rank in a week. It's just kind of unheard of. Then you go up and then you go right down. Google kind of realized we gave you too much credit too fast. So in my opinion, I think AI is good. I think it has its place. I think if you could try and incorporate some more personal writing into that AI as well, I think that will be your safest way because you need to kind of keep stable results, not this kind of up and down. I think maybe be a bit more specific with AI, whether using ChatGPT or something like Jasper, which is a bit more colloquial, rather than just saying, write me 600 words on this. Say, I want it in 4 paragraphs. I want it to include 3 statistics. I want to include these words, try and make it more specialist so that it actually looks a bit more kind of human. Certainly some other uses of AI are, you can use it in other forms. You can use it in terms of your automation, maybe in terms of reaching out to other people, in terms of getting kind of mentions and in terms of kind of chasing up people. I think that's where you can really kind of streamline things. But I think if you're building sites with just AI content, I think you'd have to be really smart to get through Google's kind of hurdles.
Yeah, good point. All right. So here's a common issue a lot of people who are in content marketing departments run into is they're constantly looking for writers to create this content for them. often the easiest thing to expand your content budget is simply go find freelancers and, ask them to write articles for you. The challenge is when you're dealing with freelancers who maybe never worked with before, you wonder, am I getting a freelancer writing this, or am I getting AI writing this and being spit out to me?
You're right. Yeah.
Is there a way to be able to tell that, if you're a content marketer out there, to be able to evaluate a piece of content as it comes in and say, is this AI written or is this human written?
Yeah, it's incredibly hard. And I think these are kind of new challenges. So I think everyone's trying to kind of understand them. I think, in my opinion, I think you can kind of notice when something's written in ChatGPT, they tend to use similar words. They use words like navigating and leveraging, and that it's for some reason the style just seems to be kind of quite succinct. The quality of language also seems to be very good. I think maybe higher than the average person. Doesn't tend to use humor. So I think, obviously sometimes writing and blogging and certainly does, but ChatGPT wouldn't. With that regard, it is a real challenge because, you think about how if you wanted to build something in Spanish, I know you speak Spanish and Portuguese like me, but you previously have to use a writer, or maybe if you and I wrote it, we know there'd be some grammatical errors, but if you use ChatGPT, it's going to be perfect and there's not going to be one error in it. So it is very, very tempting. And I think it's interesting. My only thing I can say is probably with those freelancers, you got to look at credentials. I think, like I said before, Google want to see authority, and you don't just want someone blogging unless they've got lots of experience in it and they've got diplomas and they've got a real photo and they've got that kind of thing to back it up. They have like a real link to a LinkedIn profile and a Twitter profile. I think that's kind of what Google's kind of looking for. So rather than just random freelancers, you're actually kind of looking for very specialists in certain kind of niches, I think.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's kind of move into tactics here. You have a lot of experience in banking and finance, including in SEO. So what are some of the tactics that you used there and you learned that people could apply today in their SEO work?
I think creating, newsworthy things. I mean, a lot of it, in my opinion, is just, can you get hold of very good links and very good PR? And your ability to kind of create stories and get these out, I think is always very, very useful. As we kind of mentioned, the regular content, and just having this dedicated time where you're always kind of doing your SEO. I think, a lot of corporates kind of don't see it as a value. Been a lot of rooms where they either love it or they just think it's so foreign. They think it's a bit like cryptocurrency and it's just dark arts and black magic. And you've been there, Jonathan. I know that. So I think just kind of explaining that this is how it works and, these are the returns, and you've just got to kind of push at it and be diligent. And, it's a bit of a marathon. It's not a sprint. And I often give this analogy about this American swimmer who was, swimming, I think, in the Olympics, and he took off the blocks, and he thought he had made a full start, and he was thinking of just getting up and seeing. But truth is that microseconds counts when you're swimming in the Olympics. And he just carried on swimming. He goes to the end and he comes right back. And when he comes to the end, he realizes that he's actually won and that he's broken a world record. And sometimes that's a bit of SEO. You think that you're just losing constantly, but you're like, well, I'll plug away at it anyway. But then one day it just kind of, you wake up and all of a sudden you've shot up. And I think that maybe just a bit of a hurdle just to kind of, to get over, to kind of explain to those more kind of corporate-y kind of finance types. But the same kind of traditional, clean techniques kind of apply. Yeah.
One thing, we both worked in finance and loans in the past. That's a very dry industry. And usually there's not a whole lot of room for personality, cleverness, humor, things like that. Do you think that things like, cleverness, personality, humor in your SEO writing can actually boost it, allow it to get out there more? Or is it really just something that it's kind of a nice icing on the cake for us humans to read?
Yeah, so I think you can be creative in loans. I've been working within loans 10 plus years and even worked for a company called the Lone Ranger. So, I mean, I've heard them all then. I've heard them all. But I think there's, part is Google, it's just all about signals. So I think, if you're even creating pieces that then get shared and then get linked back to, this is part of this. And I remember doing a piece which actually went a bit viral, which was on the 10 worst experiences we've had with payday loan customers, which I know that sounds maybe derogatory to the people actually applying, but it got very popular amongst forums and within the industry, there is an industry and people like sharing the kind of problems that they have. And, if that page gets visited, I think it got visited about 5,000 times. Those are very good signals because they've stayed on the site, they've read through, they've stayed down, they've emailed it to a friend. And this is kind of what Google wants compared to a site which is completely dormant, never gets looked at, people exit after a second. And there were some very interesting stories because often it seemed that lenders, they kind of hound people. They're always trying to charge them money. They're always trying to chase them up money. But we found these opportunities. I had these 10 stories of when I remember working for a lender, where one guy had taken out about 10 loans and then he just moved back to his home country and he just had no intention of kind of paying them back, and even ones where people were using kind of the details of their deceased relatives just so that they could get a loan. And with a bit of humor, it was quite interesting. I mean, maybe I've just mentioned the darker ones, but there was we had a lot of professional soccer players and it was quite easy to confirm their employment because you could just go on like the ESPN website and just kind of see them or you'd watch them in a match. But, it'd be amazed how many kind of professional soccer players, footballers, there were. So we even we had people on social media because we would track them. Yeah, this was a technique. And, we saw some people would get out alone and just go on like the biggest bender of their lives, just hitting Nobu after nightclub and renting cars. And you're just sitting there saying, I can't believe we just gave this person money. So, this was the life. This was it. And it just, those kinds of this, if you can use this in a very respectful way without mentioning the names, then it gets that's good content.
Yeah. All right. Well, very interesting. So you mentioned, the signals that Google is able to see with good content that kind of let it know this is something that, we should boost up. Obviously, people sharing it is a signal. People coming onto your site is a signal. Is time on site, on page, a signal to Google? Do they care about how long you read? And is that based upon how much text is there? Or is that simply, in other words, with a short article, if people are only there because it's not much to read, would Google take that into account? I know it's kind of technical in the weeds.
I think time on site, I think absolutely. And I think there's no question about it. I think especially for products and services, to see people kind of going through a funnel where they're filling in details and going to a thank you page shows a full service from start to finish and something like 3 or 5 minutes on a site. And I think that's good. I think there's a trend of people constantly leaving and exiting too fast. We have a very high bounce rate. That sounds like an off signal. What's quite interesting is when you sometimes see some brands go big on television and big on radio, they then just suddenly start to rank because they've just developed so much interest that people would naturally be searching for them more and obviously looking around and then they go up. So being on shows like Shark Tank and The Apprentice, naturally give you very good SEO. But SEO is obviously a lot cheaper than spending millions and millions of dollars on a TV campaign.
Yeah. No, that's very interesting. So there is kind of an interplay between the various media. Do you think that there's any interplay between having paid search ads and having SEO? I mean, do they affect each other?
It's a great question, get asked all the time. So many people, ASOS and Google say, no, there's absolutely no correlation. I say that's bullshit. I say that's absolute nonsense. I think if you're spending money with Google, they're going to like you more. But I also think it's a matter of, how much are you spending on Google ads? Is it just a few $100s? Or if you're spending tens of thousands or even, millions, there's so much traffic going to your site. And then again, if people are staying on the site and engaging with it, sharing it and that kind of thing, then that will all boost you up. Again, compared to a site which has zero traffic. So, I think that's part of it. And I think Google want brands. I think traditionally, if you just have the right words in the domain, you would just rank. But now even things like car insurance, personal loans, those words aren't even actually in the top 10. They want brands. So naturally, a company that is a brand will probably be doing some paid ads and have social media and have emails and direct and be on TV and radio. So I think it's just another signal as part of your marketing mix.
Very, very interesting. All right, excellent. As far as SEO, have you seen in your career people make mistakes? Something where you're like,
oh yes.
Anything you can share there? Maybe help people know what not to do.
Oh yes, I love this. My favorite story of all time is ASOS. ASOS are a very, very big kind of clothing brand in the UK. And you're talking about the biggest, certainly for women, you're probably looking at them in probably the top 3 or top 5. They're definitely coming up. And what happened was they hired an SEO agency to try and, change some things and use something called subdomains. So rather than being ASOS.com, it was kind of mensclothes.asos.com or shoes.asos.com. And they did this for kind of all their products. And the truth is ASOS were actually ranking very well originally. But as a result, they ended up falling horrendously. And they lost 87% of their profits in that year. And that's a company that employs 3,000 people and does annual profits of 20 million pounds, I guess, which is about $30 million. So can you imagine these kind of suits, these boardrooms kind of say, well, how on earth did this happen? We've lost almost 90% of profits this year. And you could probably imagine a guy, not me, but looking like me, with like kind of shorts and a t-shirt saying, I don't know, man. I gotta tell you, these things happen, Jeez, man. Look, if it were me, not that I would ever do this, of course, I'd be on the next plane to Panama or something, because there's no coming back from that. There's absolutely no coming back from that. And then it goes to show that even at that level, that probably wouldn't have been a cheap agency to be working with such a big company. So there are these things, ASOS is a good example. There was once an example with TripAdvisor, because they were just kind of using the same pages for all their hotels and locations. That's hundreds of thousands of hotels. And part of TripAdvisor's business is that they come up number one whenever you type in a hotel. When you think about it, that's what it is. And they were penalized by Google for just making it too standardized. So Google punished them. And as a result, they lost 95% of their traffic. And that's losing several millions and millions of dollars, in a short space of time. So they obviously corrected it pretty fast, and they probably speak to someone at Google to kind of get it right. So there's that. And my final one I'm going to share is there's a big flower company called Interflora, pretty much the biggest flower delivery in the UK, and actually probably Europe. I know they're big in Germany as well. And they were trying to get backlinks to their website, and they were offering free flowers to bloggers. And they said, all you need to do is just paste this into one of your blogs, which is you can buy, wedding flowers, Valentine's Day flowers here with the exact link. And they did that thousands of times. And Google says, no, this is bought. It's too simple. Your PR has to be earned rather than, just kind of, you can't have it. You can't buy it. It has to be kind of natural. And subsequently they were, lost 90% of their traffic and profits for that year. So I think sometimes SEO people are trying to be a little too smart is hard. And I've worked with some very, very big brands. I've worked with McDonald's, Groupon, Betway, Capital on Tap. They're a very big credit card company here. They're part of Capital One, I think, in America. And when I've gotten those kinds of campaigns, I've always just done the most basic, small tweaks, very incremental, low risk things. Because if there's, even to keeping them the same or just a little bit of growth is healthy, you don't have to grow them by 50%. They're very big companies. And even if it's just 5%, in my opinion, that's big, because if you mess up, then it's going to cost them millions of dollars. So that's always kind of been my approach to it.
No, it's a great approach, actually, is to look at, where the risk is. I mean, for a startup, obviously, you don't have any traffic to begin with. And so anything you can do to build that traffic, sure, go ahead and try it. Whereas these big companies already have invested so much in their traffic. You want to have incremental small improvements that happen there. Yeah. Great advice.
That's it. SEO can kind of make or break you. I think that's what's kind of interesting. No matter the size of your company, whether you're one employee working from home to being a multinational, across the world. So that's why it has this power. It's Google is arguably, probably the most powerful real estate in the world, where you can really just command people's attention and eyeballs, and, to think that you can get anyone across the world to your website. It's quite astounding, really. And with that has come some very interesting things, which I'd love to tell you about. Sure. Well, listen, I think I work with SEO. I think, I assume I spend all my time just kind of fixing up websites, writing content or trying to get PR. And, it does have this bigger role in the world. It drives search. And I think if Google goes down for a day, people are going to be in trouble. I think there's something like 8 billion searches a day on Google. And let's be honest, Google isn't even in China. It's not, it's banned in China. So, you talk about the scale of it, but, what's really interesting is, I'll never forget one of my first gigs. I was working for a government scheme called Startup Loans, and it still runs and it helps, companies get that startup money. And I remember working in an office in town, and I would be sitting in their office and I'd do some days. And, I remember some security guys coming in and just kind of checking the doors and checking the walls. And I didn't really think much of it. I thought maybe it's just like a fire safety thing. I don't know. And then about 5 minutes later, the Prime Minister of England walked in, being a government initiative. He wanted to come check and see it. And That's what kind of prime ministers do. They just, they walk around and shake hands, say, how do you do? So, and I was just so freaked out. I jumped out of my desk, and they're these biscuits, cookies that we eat in England called hobnobs. And, they're little oated biscuits. And I was kind of working my way through like a whole tube of them, and they were kind of sprawled across my desk. And I just quickly kind of like pushed them under the table. I stood up and I said, hey, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Hi. So, I was about 25 at the time, and I just thought, we had a chat, and I just thought to met the Prime Minister through my work. It seemed absolutely astounding. And then actually it was last month, because I work with someone who does a lot of working with the veterans. I helped this guy kind of build a veteran portal. The Prime Minister of England was doing something with UK veterans. And then we had a chance to sit down with him for half an hour. And I got to sit down with one of the most powerful people for half an hour, just chat to him and what the website can do for veterans and how it can help veterans. So it's really surprised me. My absolute favorite story is this one is, I started freelancing. I was 25, and I was just kind of so excited to be out there after being in an office for 3 years, to go out and meet people and speak to people. I remember my first day of going out to meetings and meet people. I saw 2 celebrities, which is quite random. One English actor and one English musician. It's quite random. One, I don't know, maybe it's like a bit of a weird thing, but, I remember there was the final of The Apprentice, and, there was this very, charismatic guy in the final who was, he wanted to start an SEO agency. And I was very excited to watch him, and I'd been following him the whole time, and I just couldn't wait to watch this final to kind of see what would happen. And then my wife said, no, you can't watch it tonight. I was kind of ready, sitting on the couch with my popcorn. And says, no, tonight we've got, my wife is a dentist. She says, no, we have a dentist Christmas social with a bunch of local dentists. I said, that sounds like the most lamest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. What sounds like the most pathetic social plan I've ever heard. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what, no disrespect, dentists. All my family friends are dentists. It's not like I've been shot. It's like shy of socializing with him my whole life. So we ventured to this bar in London, and we walk right in, and there's the guy who won The Apprentice, and he's sitting there right as we walk in, celebrating with his family that he had just won. And I couldn't believe this. And my wife said, look, there he is, go nuts. And I just like threw myself over there. I don't even remember the journey from walking there. Before I knew I was in his face, I said, listen, I've just started freelancing. If you want a hand, here's my card. And to put into perspective, about 12 million people watch The Apprentice final, which is about a fifth of the UK population. It's a very, very big deal. Everyone watches it to an extent, especially if you're from London, kind of thing. So, anyway, gave him my card, and I thought, that was quite fun. That was quite cool. I get a voicemail at 7:30 a.m. the next morning saying, hi, Daniel, it's Mark Wright from The Apprentice. I'm like, you're on the front page of every single newspaper, and you're on like the news. I know you don't have to say you're from The Apprentice. Anyway, he says, listen, I've got all these inquiries. I don't know what to do with them. Can you come to kind of meet us at Lord Sugar's office, who is the head of The Apprentice? He's one of the most famous businessmen in the UK. Can you come and just chat? And I said, well, I called him back, and I said, yeah, listen, I can pop in, try to make myself seem unavailable. I was very available. And I was like, yeah, well, I'll just have to move something around, but yeah, honey, yeah, I can do that. So I went in, before I know it, I'm sitting down with him and the winner of The Apprentice and Lord Sugar, and he just had all these inquiries from Twitter and LinkedIn, didn't know what to kind of do with them. He's on this kind of press run now. He's on the news and this and that. And I just kind of said, well, let's just take the best companies. Let's just arrange a meeting, and we'll just kind of buy some time with the others where we'll just set up meetings in the future. And he said, listen, go there, go win the pitch, and then just start running it. So I had a very nice break early in my career where I got to look after some big company off the back of The Apprentice, without kind of the pressure of being in the public eye. And then later on, he ended up building a big team and ended up selling it. And it was quite nice to kind of always be involved in that process. And just being behind the scenes of one of my favorite shows. And, within my kind of first few months, I'd already sat down with one of the most important businessmen in the country and with the Prime Minister. And I just couldn't believe that this was coming out of SEO when I'd been working in finance and sitting at a desk, not being listened to. So, there's always surprises. If I may, just one more. My favorite was another great story was when I was working on a loan site and just out of my apartment, and it always helps with Google if you've got a Google map. And I just thought, screw it, I'll just use my apartment's address. No one's going to kind of come. Who am I kidding? Come on. And for about 2 years, no one ever showed up. But then one day, there was a buzz at the door, and they said, "Hi, is this the loan company?" I said, Yeah, it is. And anyway, it was a very hot day. Like it was a boiling hot day in England. And, I was in shorts and a t-shirt and it was hot that day, you know. Anyway, I go downstairs and it's this very old Indian woman, with, you know, a sari and a dot. And, I said, can I help? She said, yeah, I'm looking to apply for a loan. I found you online. I said, you know, there is an online service. There's a phone number. And she says, I know, but I saw you were 20 minutes away and I thought I'd drive over. And I said, oh, you'd be the first. Okay. I'm feeling like a bit bad. She's like an old lady. I'm like, okay, well, why don't you come in? And anyway, I poured her a cold drink and we sat on my couch and I was like doing the application for her, taking her name, just kind of very manually. And at that point, a few minutes later, my wife walks in. She just nipped to the high street, to the supermarket just to get some milk or something, and came back and sees me sitting down with this old Indian woman with the laptop. And she says, what the hell is going on? You know, so just when you think you're having a very quiet, peaceful day of absolutely nothing, you know, that comes along. And then I once had, I did some work for a Russian yoga influencer, you know, just a bit of work for her, whatever. And then they said, you know, we need your address for invoicing purposes. Gave them my address. A couple of days later, Mercedes kind of pulls up to our house. Man knocks on the door. He hands me an envelope of cash. He says, you paid now, and drives off. And that was obviously payment for the work. I never heard from them again. And that was kind of it. And, you know, whatever paid the bills. So, you know, I'm sure the neighbors would have been very, you know, surprised by that one. But, you know, so this is it.
Those are great stories, Daniel. Tell me, if you could go back in time, meet yourself at the beginning of your career, if you could give yourself one piece of advice, something you've learned over the years, what would you give yourself as advice?
Yes. The obvious one is to kind of stick with it, because I think going freelance was probably quite daunting. I think a lot of people are very scared to go freelance and leave a job, especially in big cities where the cost of living are high, and you kind of need to be quite fearless in that respect. But to give myself true advice would be to just be way more aggressive. I think, it's very hard to make like really good money with client work. I think you can build it up quite nicely. I think, you know, basically, let's say you get, you know, 10 clients at $1,000 each. That's $10,000 gross. That's good money. You know, that's more than maybe a lawyer or an accountant works. So that is good, but, you do kind of hit the wall. Yeah, then maybe to grow more than that, you do have to hire staff, and then that comes with a lot of costs and management, and then you've got to give them salary reviews, and then the margin becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. Maybe you need an office. So a lot of people try to build up client bases and then try to sell off their agency, which is not always easy. I've seen people sell it successfully, but sometimes their payments get reduced, or they end up having to stay in the business for a few years, which may be tough. So it's not always that cut and dry. But, you know, I think the best money really is in affiliates. If you can kind of build your own sites, get them to the top of Google and sell off products. Obviously, I've done a lot of that kind of loans and insurance, because that's kind of my niche. But that's really where you're going to kind of make money. I think when you work with a client, you're only charging $1,000, let's say, but they could make $100,000. They could make $1 million off it, but you're always going to be stuck at that unless you can be quite good with revenue shares and bartering and that kind of thing. But very large companies maybe aren't as inclined. And even small companies too. So, you know, if you can kind of see how much you could potentially earn by being at the top, if you can kind of replicate that, learn it and take risks, to kind of build those things out, that would be very, very good advice in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about Dan Tan, your agency, and,
Yes.
you know, who's a good fit for Dan Tan? What's your special sauce that really makes Dan Tan a little different? And
that's right. Yeah. So there's so many agencies out there. You know, agencies can be 100 people, they can be 5 people. And Dan Tan Digital is off the bat of more than 10 years of SEO work. So we have kind of seen a lot of different industries. We kind of, whenever a client comes in, we can say, look, we have worked in that niche at some point. But we're not office based. We never have been. We were briefly in the center of London just to kind of get a feel, but we like being remote, and in doing so, we can kind of pass on those cost savings. And I think we have this kind of rolling contracts where you just kind of assess after every month, and we only invoice at the end of every month. So between experience and having very flexible contracts, you know, those are very nice kind of USPs. And of course, I will look at it and I will work with it. I oversee every project. I'm involved in every project and every client we have. And often when you compare that to an agency, you know, they are more expensive because they have big overheads. In order to scale, they do need to let account managers work on it who are typically, you know, fresh out of college, fresh out of university. And because they have these overheads, they do need to try to tie you down with that upfront fee, and they need to get you down on 12-month contracts. For those looking to sell an agency, they say, how many 12-month contracts do you have? So, I think this kind of, people like this very refreshing approach. They get to work with the owner, which is Dan Tan. You are getting Dan Tan, and ultimately that you do have this flexibility every single month, and you're not tied down. And I think whilst we'll always get results and we won't stop until we do, I think in the unknown world of SEO, it's quite nice just to have that kind of, peace of mind.
Excellent. So here's a good question. Lots of people out there who are listeners are always looking for agencies to help them do things. How can you determine a good fit for you in an SEO agency? What are the things to look for as you're out there evaluating? You're like, should I talk to these guys or those guys? Who should I choose?
Yes. It's a great question. Everything's personal. Some of it comes down to, it's almost like dating. It's kind of like, do you want to see this person again? That's kind of weird. Are you happy to go back and forth with them and build some kind of personal relationship? Knowing the industry, of course, always does help. But I mean, I've had to learn and become an expert in things. I can tell you absolutely anything you need to know about loft conversions, and window replacements, and even, restorative dentistry. So, it's, you do become an expert in weird stuff. But I think, certainly in terms of clients, we like someone who's can kind of afford it. And I know that sounds odd because that's kind of assumed, but if your entire life is just based on just, can you get to the top of Google, that's just too dangerous. Google, you don't know where it's going to take shape in 3 months, 6 months, or even 12 months. Sometimes our best work, happened after 18 months, and you need someone who's patient, going to stay with you for that. So if it's like their last shot and they're like, nothing's worked, this is our last go, we hated our last agency, and this is the last go, then that's just, you're just under a lot of unnecessary pressure. And very often people come and say, look, we fired our last agency, we hated them. How are you different? So that is tough, So SEO does have a bad name. There's so much kind of, especially coming, forgive me, from Asia, where they're just planting lots of emails and spam emails to people and offering it for like $10 a month, which makes it really undervalued and not that specialist. So that's tough. But when you know that they're doing other things, and when it's not their make or break, and it's not going to cost them their lives, and they're not going to go out of business for trying it, and they can kind of respect, we'll give it 6 months and 12 months and we'll let it run in the background. Those are the ones that often do the best. So, that's typically that kind of nice attitude, and that kind of patience is exactly what you need, much like you're running a marathon.
Yes. Yeah. No, yeah. Good point. For anyone out there looking for an agency, in all the agencies that I've hired, I've never had instant results. It's always taken some time. And, sometimes it's, 4 months, 6 months before you see that big boost. And so you have to have patience with SEO. It is not a, once you've learned it, you're done science. It's a continually changing game. So yeah, very good advice there. So where can people find Dan Tan on the internet, or how can they connect with you?
Very simple. dantandigital.com. You can get in touch by there. There's also Dan Tan Digital on Instagram. And I would be delighted to chat. I'll talk to a bowl of soup. Sure. Not ideal, but I want to kind of talk to people. So let's talk. Let's see how we can help. Let's see how we can add value, and be my absolute pleasure. And I speak English and American, which helps, and some other languages too, like New John. So get in touch.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Daniel. Appreciate your insights.
All right. Thank you very much, Jonathan.
Cutting Edge Web Content Development is brought to you by ButterCMS. To find out how you can build better with Butter, stop wasting dev time, and free your marketers from your legacy CMS, visit ButterCMS.com. Also, make sure to search for Cutting Edge Web Content Development in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at ButterCMS, thank you for listening.